of a side dish for any great piece of low and slow barbecue, the number one thing that comes to mind has got to be cornbread, and for good reason. It's absolutely delicious. It's great just on its own. Put some honey butter on it, cut it into slices and toast it in butter, cut it into cubes and make it into croutons. There's a lot of things you could do with it, and it's so easy to make on your own. It's really a great side dish for any meal. There's a couple of things that make this cornbread stand out. First thing is fresh corn. I love to put fresh corn into my cornbread. I like to see those corn kernels in the bread. And another thing is to brown the butter. It really adds a depth of flavor to the cornbread, really gives it a nice nutty flavor. You saw my video for chocolate chip cookies. The main thing to make those cookies over the top is to brown the butter. It really transforms the dish. So we're gonna start this cornbread by browning our butter. So I got half a cup of butter, or 113 grams, and we just wanna put this over medium-high heat until it gets nice and brown. Our butter's almost there. We don't want it to color too much because then it'll be burnt. But if we don't color it enough, we're not going to get that nice brown butter flavor. You can really start to smell it. That's when you know it's finished. It really just has a beautiful nutty flavor. So that looks good. We'll shut the heat. And then we're just going to transfer this to a container to completely cool. Let the brown butter cool for about 10 minutes, just to room temperature. We don't want it too hot. I got the oven preheating to 425 degrees Fahrenheit or 218 degrees Celsius. So the cornbread is going to cook in this pan, and we want to get this pan nice and hot. That's what's going to give our cornbread that nice crust, that nice brown color. As our oven preheats, we want to put the pan we're going to cook the cornbread into the oven. For this cornbread now, we can put all our ingredients together, get our batter ready as the oven preheats. So I got a cup and a quarter all-purpose flour and a cup and a quarter of cornmeal. This is a fine ground cornmeal. I really prefer this as to a coarse ground. It gives you a much better texture for your cornbread. Get the fine ground cornmeal. And any cornbread recipe, any good cornbread recipe is equal parts cornmeal to flour. Got a third of a cup of sugar, a tablespoon of baking powder, and a teaspoon of baking soda. And the leavening agents are going to give us that nice airy cornbread as opposed to a dense cornbread. So I like my cornbread on the little bit on the sweet side. So another ingredient I like to add that you don't see in a lot of cornbread recipes, it's a really great ingredient I use in all my barbecue rubs, and that's honey powder. This is just dehydrated, granulated honey. This stuff is awesome. I'll put a link in the description if you want to order this. You should really give it a try. It's great in coffee. As I said, it's great on my barbecue rubs, and it's great in this cornbread. If you don't want to use the honey powder, or if you don't have it, you could substitute brown sugar, or just leave the third of a cup of sugar if you don't want it too sweet. So I'm putting 3 tablespoons of this honey powder in. It's a really nice sweetness when you bite into this and you just go, what is that? It really tastes good. And at that point you could tell people it's honey powder, or you could just say, it's just my cornbread, it's just that good. 1.5 teaspoons of salt. So those are our dry ingredients. Just give these a whisk. For our wet ingredients, just take 2 eggs. And to our eggs, we'll add 1.5 cups of buttermilk. It's another must-have ingredient for any classic cornbread recipe. You need that buttermilk. Give that a whisk. And then we'll add in our brown butter. Whisk that in. Again, make sure this is cooled down to room temperature. We don't want to end up with scrambled eggs. Get all those bits in there. Really recommend browning the butter. It really changes the flavor. We'll add that to our dry ingredients. Incorporate that together. Now we'll take my 2 ears of corn, we'll cut that in and just fold that right into our batter. So hold it here and I like to do this over a bowl so you don't get corn all over the place. If you don't have the fresh corn, you could use canned corn, just make sure it's drained out, or you could use frozen corn. Frozen corn's fine, just make sure it's thawed out. Definitely go with the fresh corn if you can. So that's 2 ears of corn. This is about a cup of fresh corn. And this will cook in our batter. But corn can be consumed raw. It doesn't need to be cooked to death or anything. Corn is fine just like this. Fold in that fresh corn. So our oven's preheated. Bring back our pan. I like to just hit it with some non-stick cooking spray. And get that batter in there. Even it out a bit. We'll put this back in our oven. We'll check on this in about a half hour. Do not forget the pan is hot, because I've done that before, and it really just sucks to burn your hand. So just remember, the pan is going to be hot. So back in the oven. All right, so this actually only took 20 minutes. When you have that pan preheated, it doesn't take long at all. Just keep an eye on this. Put a toothpick in the center, comes out clean, or push the middle. If it bounces back, it's another way to know that it's finished. We're gonna let it cool at least 15 minutes in the pan. Then we'll take it out, put it on a wire rack, let it cool completely before we cut into this. You can smell that fresh corn. All right, let this hang out. All right, let this cornbread completely cool down. Slide it off our rack here. Let's cut this. You obviously could cut it any way you want. Since it's round, I'm gonna cut it like a pie. If it was square, I'd cut square pieces. You can still cut square pieces, but nice cornbread right there. That fresh corn really goes nicely. Put this on a plate. That's it, homemade cornbread. Really easy to do. You don't have to buy that packaged store-bought stuff anymore because this is 10 times better. Get that honey powder. Really makes a difference. Don't forget to brown the butter. Really makes this cornbread taste great. And the fresh corn, of course. I just think that cornbread should have the corn in it. I love it. Let me show how quickly this comes together. The ingredients are so easy to mix together. Pan is hot, 20 minutes, you're done. It's really easy to do. Give this a try. Give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time.